One of the strongest tools in Toon Boom Harmony would have to be the Bone Deformer. Now, this is available in Toon Boom Essentials, Advanced, as well as Premium. And what I want to show you here is some of the basics of how it works. Now, the document I'm using is the Werefoot, and we're using the Werefoot Bone Basics. So you can open this from our chapter 3, and you'd simply open up the Werefoot folder and you'd find Werefoot Bone Basics. So to show you the bone deformation basics, I want to go ahead and use this on the tail. So I'm going to go ahead and solo this layer. I'm just clicking on our solo here. And at the top of my screen here, I'm going to go to my rigging tool. I'll click once. And I'm just going to make sure that layer is selected. And the first thing I'll do is set where my pivot point is going to be. So I want the tail to rotate pretty much from the very beginning of it here. So I'll click right at the start of the tail. And instead of me clicking and creating several little bones, I'm just going to click in the middle and create a little joint right here. And then I'll click at the very end. Now I have bent this just a little bit. But for the most part, whenever you're creating bones, you want the artwork to be straight because you can curve it with the bones. So if it's an arm that goes to a hand or anything like that, there are exceptions to the rule, of course, and we'll take a look at those when we work on the leg. So we have our pivot point at the beginning, and the line here, this first line, is a bone. This little circle joint in the middle is referred to as the articulator, and then we have a second bone. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here. And what I want to do is I'm going to adjust the articulator so it's at least touching the edges of the tail. So I'm going to drag this straight out. And there is one thing you need to know about the articulator. If you try to just kind of push this up and down, it's acting kind of weird. What you'll need to do is click directly on the articulator and follow the arrows. So the arrows are telling you to kind of either go forward and backward, and that's going to give you a smooth transition as far as the size. Now, if you look at the bones, they're in red. To see how this works, you're going to move from the rigging tool and go to your transform tool. And now I can start bending the bones here. And I see how that works. Now, there's one thing you need to remember. If you decide that the articulator is taking up too much space or it doesn't quite look right, in order to change that, you don't want to do this with your transform tool. You'll want to go back to the rigging tool, and this will show you the original, and you can adjust the articulators here. So now if we go back to transform, you can see this doesn't look as good. Now undo that. So I can go back to the rigging area and change how this is set up. And that looks a lot better. Last but not least, sometimes you may actually want to animate the articulator. And you can do that, but if you notice, while we're in the transform mode, you can start seeing different things happening to the tail as we adjust the articulator. And again, this can be animated, and we'll show that a little bit later. But for the most part, you'll want to adjust the articulator only when you're in the rigging mode. So those are the bone basics. Think of it as anchor points if you're working with a Bezier curve. You don't need a lot of points to have a lot of movement, so you want to keep it as simple as possible.